one of the things that, as officials, what we do here at MIBT, we take these plays, and I'm hoping that I know some of you are sending us film, so I know you're breaking down your film, and you're getting the copies of your game. And it's funny, we call it film. It's not really film anymore, but that's what we call it. And you're looking at it, and how do you look at it? And we've done presentations here about how you break down film. This is not what this is about. This is about self-evaluation. Now I'm going to share a story with you, and I'm going to show a couple clips here. I was at a conference this past week, and one of the speakers used to be the commander of the Thunderbirds, the aerial team for the Air Force, Thunderbirds, and the Blue Angels also followed this same model. And what was discussed was when they make a mistake, it's interesting. You would think, well, how can they make a mistake? Because, well, they film, tape, whatever, record every practice and every performance. So here's a clip. I'm going to show a clip from the. Let me go to the clip for the Thunderbirds first. So here's a clip, and I know everybody's probably seen these guys fly, but here's this clip here. All right, now you can see. Now you see them with the smoke. Interesting enough is that, and I'm not sure if the Thunderbirds do this, but I do know the Blue Angels do it. If one of those aircraft is not popping the smoke like that, that means they made a mistake. And like right now, they're upside down. Okay, I don't know if you realize this. They're upside down, coming back around, and you can see if they make a mistake during the show, they turn their smoke off. And why do they do that? That's to indicate to their team that they know they made a mistake, and they turn their smoke off to account for it. Accountability. Okay. So once the show is over, all right, now they do what we do. They sit down around post game, they look at the film, and they go through and they want every single pilot in that room, or mechanic, it doesn't matter, everybody on the team, mechanic, the coordinator, whatever, if anybody made a mistake, they need to own up to it right there. They need to say, this was my mistake. These were my mistakes during the show. And the group supports that. Now, obviously, you can't make so many mistakes, otherwise you won't be with the group anymore. You won't be part of the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels. But you have to be at the highest level anyways to get there. So they're trying to make themselves better. And where they have problems is if all of a sudden the whole squadron sees a mistake, but the pilot or the mechanic or whoever doesn't own up to that mistake, makes excuses, doesn't say it was, that does this or that, does something that doesn't say, raise his hand and say, yeah, raise his or her hand and say, yeah, I made the mistake here. Because once we identify those mistakes on our own, that's when we can grow and get better. That's when we can take that whatever and make that whatever not happen again. Because we've identified it, and we've identified a way to mitigate it. So that's the first part of this. And before we move on to the second part of this, I'm going to bring in Bill, because I know Bill's got a lot of, he's done a lot of work with this before with his crews when he was with in the Big Ten and even the international guys. So Bill, we talk about, this accountability, the self-accountability. And how did you would do something similar with your crews, I'm assuming, in the Big Ten and the international guys, correct?
Yeah, when we'd break down film and we'd be going over film, and it would come around to somebody's play that needed discussion, either mechanically or judgment-wise. The key thing was that if that official could tell us why it broke down, then we could all learn from it. We could understand it. If that and usually there were suggestions that came from the rest of the crew. Yeah, that's happened to me before, and this is what I've done to try and circumvent that so it doesn't happen again. But when that official would make an excuse, that official usually got eaten alive. Okay, he didn't get that support. So it's the thing you got to understand is that's your team out there. They know mistakes happen. put it on the table, own up to it, and get some help so it doesn't happen again. But when you can tell us why you made that mistake, we can all relate to that. We can relate to it. We've all done it.
Right. And like the Blue Angels and Thunderbirds haven't flown a perfect show, we haven't officiated a perfect game. Bill, when was the last perfect game you officiated?
Good question. Probably one I didn't accept. Yeah.
Right. So we have not officiated. We don't officiate perfect games. You know what? I'm going to show you something here from one of my games. And here is, I'm going to bring up the play to show you about not officiating a perfect game and actually having an error that you want to learn from. So here's a play. I am the back judge. This is a college game, not that that matters, but I'm the back judge, and I want you to focus in. First, I want you to focus in at the top because right now you've got a receiver or you've got a player in motion. So basically, even in a 5-person game, back judge, depending on your mechanics, is a lot of times going to go to this inside receiver. But right at the snap, there is no competitive matchup with the receivers. This is a run play. You read run play. Now what happens is I will tell you that the umpire is in the offensive backfield too. So you do not see an umpire in the defense backfield in the traditional spot. The right guard pulls, number 55. So as a back judge, this is kind of like opening up. But you look at the block at the top of the screen. There's an engagement. You see a running back coming through the hole. So, all right, back judge maybe goes there. Now what happens? You've got a defensive low block. And luckily, you can see the line judge, he catches it and throws it. Now we're going to go to the end zone shot. And you're going to see the back judge. Like I said, it's me. All right? In the end, what happened is that you can see my head. I don't know if you can catch it right there. If you look up there, the bill of my cap is actually pointed off to the left of the screen, my right, because I'm looking at that other block. And I catch this low block out of the corner of my eye, but I don't throw because I wasn't 100% sure. And so when I saw the line judge's flag come in, I was extremely happy. Now, how did I mess up on this play? How did I mess up on this play? Is that I should have zoned this up, okay? I went and focused on a block that you could say was potential point of attack or second level, but I had other officials, especially on this game with a side judge or field judge or whatever, a deep official, and I had a line of scrimmage official that could have picked up on this. This was right down the gut. I should have seen this block right in front of me and focused in on it. And especially since the umpire, because what happens is that not understanding the mechanics a little bit without an umpire in this position, it's kind of an NFL mechanic, this is where I need to go as a back judge on a running play. I need to go inside, kind of like an ump judge, and make this call. Now, like I said, I'm glad the line judge, and maybe the head linesman could have gotten it too, but I'm glad the line judge did save my butt. And looking at this play, when I moved on to the next week, I made the adjustment. I adjusted to now, because that was 2 weeks ago, I adjusted to how I was going to call this, or I should say focus in on this. So I see my mistake, and I'm going to be better now the next time. I'm not going to miss that block next time, because especially if I don't have an umpire, I'm going to be moving in and focusing on, when I rerun, more of line of scrimmage stuff. Now, the second part of this play, that's part of the second part of our discussion tonight, is that, well, Tim, you might ask, well, why were you looking at that block up there at the top when you had other officials that may have been able to look at that block and you could have focused in on the main block, the safety foul, and get that instead of having your attention divert to a block that may or may not have been point of attack in the end. So I'm going to go back to our, this time I'm going to bring up the Blue Angels instead of the Thunderbirds. And I want you to see something here on this. And here is this. Now look at this. If you look down, they're 359 miles an hour. All right. That's pretty fast. Now here, this is them flying. Now when you watch this on the ground, you don't see them moving around this much. They look pretty tight, but look how much they're moving. Look how close they are, doing 350 miles an hour, and that's how close they are. Okay, there's four of them. All right, that's pretty crazy doing that speed, and that's what the guy, the number 4 is what they call him. That's what number 4 is looking at. Now I want you to remember this. Remember this shot, because what this is that as a fish. Okay, so let me explain what they do there. Maybe some of you know this. Let me go back to the shot so you understand. The guy in front, number 1, is the one directly ahead and above. That's the number 1. What everybody flies off of number 1. Number 1's the only one who's flying, looking, doing like a regular airplane. The other 3 are flying off of the wing of number 1 and number 2 and number 3. They're flying off of the wing. They are trusting their lives with number 1. Because they're not looking at the ground. They're not looking at anything other than number 1. So if number 1 crashes, all 3 of them crash. All 4 of them crash, I should say. The 3 behind as well. So as crews, what I was doing on that play is I wasn't trusting my number 1 or number 2 or number 3. I got to look at this block because I don't care about that block because who's watching this block? Well, no. I needed to trust that my number 1 or number 2 or number 3 or whatever, side judge, field judge in that case, would catch that block. So as officials, it's similar. When you're out there, you have to work as a crew, as a unit, just like these guys. You have to trust your official. So that way, if you're right there, he's gonna make the call, and we can help each other out when we like the line judge helped me out on this one. But in the end, you have to trust that your fellow officials are gonna do what they're out there to do, just like the Blue Angels. Now, this isn't life or death, and we're not moving at 350 miles an hour. But the concept is similar, and I'm hoping that maybe some people have gotten something out of that and now can implement that with your crew and in your next game. That's what I'm hoping. So I'm going to bring it over to Mike real quick, see if there's any comments or questions on any of this that maybe have come through on the chat, or what do you got, Mike?
Actually, well, let's say the comment is, let's say you make a call like this in a game, or you don't make the call, and a coach questions it, and you don't have any answer for him. You go home, you watch the video, you find this play, and you realize, oh man, I missed it. Then the next game, you go see that coach again. Do you bring it up and say anything about it? Do you apologize? Do you?
You know what, Mike? I have an example that happened to me. It wasn't a safety foul like this, but it's exactly that. We had a play in a college game. It was a D3 game in Illinois, and we messed it up. And I was the line of scrimmage official, and it was about a touchback, similar to almost the first play we had. And they made the total incorrect ruling. Now, didn't know that initially. I found out, at least on the film, or after discussions later, that it was done incorrectly. Now, it just so happened, I was filling in on a crew. My crew had the same team the next week. And I walked up to the special teams coach, and I said to him, hey, I was on your game last week, and I want you to know we reviewed the film, and you were right. This person actually did do this, and we made an error. So you taught it, you coached it the right way, and you were correct. We made an error. And he said, no, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I knew you made an error. I already knew you made an error, but the fact that you came up and said something, I appreciate. Then it also happened to me with a targeting foul. And I didn't make the call, but it was the same thing. Next week I had the same team, or 2 weeks later I had that same team. And we had called targeting that was not targeting. And it ended up, it got overturned, but they did have to sit out the second half, the rest of the second half. And I found that player. And I said, look, we made an error. And even though I wasn't the one who made the call, I was part of the crew that made the call. And on behalf of that crew, I want to apologize that you had to sit out the half of that game. And he said, thank you very much. So I have accounted for that. I don't know, sometimes you have to pick your battles there. And we do have a couple more plays to get to, but I'm going to bring Bill in and get Bill's opinion on this, because Bill's been doing this a lot longer than most of us. I mean, you heard what I did, and it worked out. Sometimes it might not work out, but what's your thought on it?
Well, you're right. You have to pick your battles and pick your times when these things happen. We had a major snafu in a tight game with Purdue and Michigan, and I went over to Coach Carr and admitted the mistake we made and what we had to do about the timing situation. And I mean, he was dead furious as I started to talk to him. But I said, Coach, all I can tell you is we kicked it, and this is what I have to do moving forward. And he stopped and looked at me and he said, I think I got a lot more questions to answer in the post-game interview than you do. You've seen the plays I've been calling all day. So he said, you bear down, I'll bear down. We'll move on with life. Now, again, you don't want to do that every game. You don't want to do that twice a game. But when it happens, and that, I think it's just a thing about maintaining, maybe not gaining, but maintaining respect by owning up to something,
Right, and it just makes us all better. You're just going to, going into the first part about admitting the mistake to yourself, and then if you want to account for it and it's the right time and it makes sense, fine. I mean, I don't have an issue with that, and we got to trust each other out there. So hopefully, as we move, as the games get a little bit more important, not that they're all not important, but as playoffs and this and that, we can take this and bam, we can hit our own finish line, full speed. MIBT, make it be there.